What's up, everybody? It is Gomlet X. It is Wednesday, June 19th, 2019, day 3 of core set M20 Spoilers. And let's just get into the cards. We're going to start off with Scholar of the Ages. It's 2 blue and 5 for a 3... What's going on? Dinosaurs? Never mind, it's dinosaur time. We got Marauding Raptor, 2 and a black for a 7/6 zombie dinosaur. At the beginning of your upkeep, discard a card. Holy shit. The second I saw this card, my mind was blown, and I immediately knew this is the first card I'm talking about, no matter what. This card is absolutely bonkers. It's a zombie dinosaur, first of all, so it gets all of the tribal buffs from those 2 tribes, which we have a lot of support for, at least until rotation. And it's a 3 mana 7/6. The thing about it is, yeah, you have to discard an additional card at the beginning of your upkeep, but if you have no cards in your hand, you don't have to discard anything. So in a hyper-aggressive deck, where this is kind of like the top of your curve, you just jam stuff out there real fast, you could potentially drop this out here with very little drawback. And even if you're having to discard cards for it, that much of a drawback is fine for a 7 power, 6 toughness creature on turn 3. That's really hard to kill without something that doesn't just straight up say destroy or exile or anything like that. That's 6 toughness. It's not just the 7 power that you're getting. This card seems absolutely incredible, and I'm very excited to start dropping some Marauding Raptors. And in the realm of dinosaurs, let's move on to Marauding Raptor. 1 and a red for a 2/3 dinosaur. Creature spells you cast cost 1 less to cast, and whenever another creature enters the battlefield under your control, Marauding Raptor deals 2 damage to it. If a dinosaur is dealt damage this way, Marauding Raptor gets +2/+0 until end of turn. This card's really cool. This helps your curve massively in a dinosaur deck, because a lot of the old dinosaurs are these pretty high mana cost, really large creatures. Being able to play them a turn sooner is actually pretty nice, especially when in doing so, you can immediately trigger their enrages by the Marauding Raptor dealing damage to them, and also just pump up your Raptor. The other really nice thing about this is you can double up Raptors if you have high enough toughness on your later dinosaurs that you're confident in doing 4 damage to the rest of your creatures, simply because it has 3 toughness. One of your Marauding Raptors can survive getting hit by the other one. So this is a really cool card. It's definitely going to make dinosaur decks very pushed for the last few months until rotation. This is definitely the coolest time in Standard, in my opinion, is the few months leading up to rotation, because they always give us some goodies like this to just pump up the very old strategies to the highest power level possible, since not a lot can go wrong, since they'll be rotating out very soon. Next up, we have another insane spoiler, Yarok the Desecrated. 2, a black, a green, and a blue for a 3/5 legendary elemental horror. It has Death Touch and Lifelink, and if a permanent entering the battlefield causes a triggered ability of a permanent you control to trigger, that ability triggers an additional time. So I know that just sounded like a lot of nonsense there. Said trigger a whole bunch, entering the battlefield, all that. It's Panharmonicon. Panharmonicon on a commander. This is immediately going to come out and be the most popular of the new commanders. That's my guess right now. I'm pretty sure that's a pretty safe bet. I think this thing's just immediately going to shoot up into very, very high commander popularity. It's just really fun to build around Panharmonicon, and all of your enter the battlefield effects triggering twice. There's just so much you can do with this that I'm really not going to start listing things, because then I'd be listing like a third of the cards in Standard, but this is a tremendously exciting card that's going to be really, really fun to build a deck around. I think I'm probably going to try to pick up one of these very soon, so I can build myself a Yarok the Desecrated Panharmonicon commander deck. Next up, we've got a cycle of lands coming in to help us fix our mana since we'll be losing all of the check lands, unfortunately. We have the return of the temples, the scry lands. Temple of Triumph, Temple of Mystery, Temple of Silence, Temple of Melody, and Temple of Epiphany. So this is yet another thing that is kind of pointing us towards going back to Theros. Since we are only getting the enemy-colored scry lands in this set, I could definitely see Theros showing up a set or two from now and giving us all of the allied colored ones. So I'm super pumped for that. The artwork on these is fantastic, and they'll definitely be fine cards that see a lot of play in Standard. Next up, we have the green Leyline that has been spoiled. It is another new green Leyline. Leyline of Abundance. If it's in your opening hand, begin the game with it on the battlefield. Costs 2 green and 2 mana otherwise. And whenever you tap a creature for mana, add an additional green. And for 8 mana, 2 green and 6 more, put a +1/+1 counter on each creature you control. This is a weird one. This is a very interesting one because it's for insanely specific decks. Pretty much all of the other ley lines in the set are kind of situational cards, but they can go into almost any deck. This specifically, you have to be using a deck with creatures that tap for mana for it to do much of anything. You're very unlikely to want to put this in your deck if all you have it in there for is for the 8 mana ability. But I think it's really cool. This is a leyline that really hinges on you getting it out on turn 0, just cheating it into play, because by the time you cast this for its mana cost, just hard cast it at 4, you've already lost out on a lot of mana that you could have been getting by tapping your mana dorks. So the potential for this card is really high. If you just randomly drop this out, your turn 1 Llanowar Elves gives you a total of 2 mana next turn, meaning you can play 4 drops on turn 2 if you play this and a Llanowar Elf. That's just insane. I'm very excited to see if this will end up anywhere. I'm very hopeful that this will lead to something pretty crazy, some potentially devastating curves. But again, very, very risk-reward. Next up, we're going to talk about the return of Fork with Super Fork, 2 and 2 red for a repeated reverberation. It's an instant, and whenever you cast... it's got some very specific wording. When you next cast an instant spell, cast a sorcery spell, or activate a loyalty ability this turn, copy that spell or ability twice. You may choose new targets for the copies. So this is awesome. For 4 mana, it's 2 forks in 1, and it can copy loyalty abilities. So if you were somehow in a situation where you were going to ultimate a Planeswalker and you weren't going to win immediately from that first ultimate, why not have 3 ultimates in 1 turn? That's actually insane. Also, with Chandra's +1, that's hilarious. Put 3 emblems on your opponent. And even just if you have 5 mana, cast this and then a Wizard's Lightning your opponent for 9. Lots of really cool, really fun stuff you can do with this card. This is obviously going to be a crazy, hilarious game ender in casual decks, because in casual formats where you end up with a whole lot of mana by the end of the game, there's so much stupid stuff you can do with this. Repeated Reverberation, cast Time Stretch. Everybody should just concede at that point. Just don't even... That's more than enough turns to end everything in pretty much any deck. There's just so many cards to list here, but overall, it's a very cool card. Next up, we're going to talk about Moldervine Reclamation. 3, a black and a green for an enchantment. When a creature you control dies, you gain a life and draw a card. I could easily see this becoming another commander staple in green-black decks. Simply because of one-sided Fecundity is already pretty good for a little bit more mana, and this also gives you some life. The main thing that makes this card quite good is the fact that it triggers off of your token creatures dying as well. So in decks like Slimefoot, even when your little saprolings die, you get to draw cards. In Gitrog, if your 1/1 worms from your Worm Harvest die, you get to draw cards. A lot of good stuff with this card. It is a 5 mana, 2 colored enchantment though, so I don't expect this to see play in 1v1 formats just because it's pretty slow. when you've only got one opponent, but for Commander and casual play, definitely a very cool card. Last but not least, let's go ahead and talk about the Planeswalkers. We've got Mu Yanling. I'm sorry, I'm blatantly just ruining these pronunciations. I'm not going to say that again. I'm going to assume you got it the first time. Sky Dancer. That part I can pronounce. 2 blue and 1 more for a legendary Planeswalker Yanling. +2 until your next turn, up to 1 target creature gets -2/-0 and loses flying. -3, create a 4/4 blue elemental bird creature token with flying. And -8, you get an emblem with islands you control, have tap, draw a card. This is a very interesting card. I think it's pretty hard to get up to the ultimate, but the ultimate is insane. It doesn't protect itself insanely well. It does give creatures -2/-0, and it's a +2 ability, so it kind of comes out with 4 loyalty after you've used its plus. I really don't know how to feel about this card. I think it's obviously going to be fantastic and limited, as Planeswalkers usually are, but I just don't know if -2 to 1 creature is going to be enough to defend this to make it super worthwhile, just because we have a lot of really good, really fast creatures that are just going to have more than 3 power on turn 2, turn 3, and obviously past that. And finally, another 3-mana Planeswalker, Sorin Imperious Bloodlord. 2 and a black for a 4 loyalty Sorin Planeswalker. +1, target creature control gains Death Touch and Lifelink until end of turn. If it's a vampire, put a +1/+1 counter on it. Another +1, you may sacrifice a vampire. When you do, Sorin Imperious Bloodlord deals 3 damage to any target and you gain 3 life. And -3, you may put a vampire creature card from your hand onto the battlefield. So there's not a whole lot to say about this card. It is very nice and very pumped for a vampire tribal deck. That is literally the only kind of deck it will work in. It's very similar to the Liliana from M19 in that way, and I expect it'll fill a similar niche where it doesn't see a whole lot of play because it's designed so specifically for that one strategy. But definitely a very nice card for fans of vampires. So that is going to end the spoilers for today, and I have one super special, insanely exciting announcement to make at the very end of this video here. Wizards actually accepted me into the M20 Preview Streaming Event. So on July 1st, I will be one of the many content creators streaming Core Set 2020 a couple days before it shows up on Arena. I'm super pumped and super happy for the opportunity, and I expect that I will be live the second I get off work until I fall asleep. So, very excited for that. I will keep you informed as we get closer to the date, exactly what times I will be streaming, and we'll make a day of it. So thank you everybody for watching, and I'll see you again very soon for more Magic stuff.